You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, episode 545, Juggernaut.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Bill Smith, sitting in for Norman Lau. Each week on Mission Log, we rummage through an episode of Star Trek, risking life and limb where creatures lurk, in order to bring you the morals, meanings, and messages, and see if the whole thing stands the test of time.
This week, Juggernaut, the one where the Voyager crew goes dumpster diving on a Malon ship while trying to avoid radiation, a monster, and getting to know the Malon themselves. Welcome to the show, Bill Smith. I am so glad to have you here. How's it going?
It's going great, my friend. It's great to see you. I know we spend a lot of the year planning Trek talks and talking about other things, but it's my honor and privilege to be here for my dear friend and my brother in Trek, Norman. It's great to be on Mission Log, a show that I hear some people listen to. But if you remember back in the day,
yes,
it was revealed that the computer had a crush on me.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm a little concerned that may impact how this episode is presented. I don't want you to get less airtime. So we'll have a conversation.
I wouldn't even give it a second thought. Hey, look, I'm sure that everybody in our audience knows exactly who you are, but for the 2 or 3 people who may be brand new to all of this, please remind everybody, you mentioned Trek Talks, and of course, it has been my privilege to work on that with you and Dan and John Billingsley, and then our growing team, too many people to mention here. Yeah. We love you all, but that has been cooking along for the last few years. Go to trektalks.net and check out what is coming up for the next show. But in your daily podcasting life, tell everybody what you do.
Well, I am one half of the Trek Geeks. We've been around now coming up on 10 years in January, and we're pretty excited about it. But we kind of, whereas Mission Log is an episode-by-episode examination of Star Trek and its messages, Trek Geeks is sort of Star Trek through the lens of my almost 30-year friendship with Dan Davidson. And it's what brought us together. It's what kept us as friends. It's what we talk about every single time we're together, and when we're being serious and when we're not, which is often. But, we have a great time, and we hope that people feel like they're part of the discussion. We've been so fortunate to grow Trek Geeks into a network which has so many great shows, including like Sci-Fi Sisters and Deep Space Pride and With the First Link and so many others. So we'd like to think that, we're helping passionate fans get their voice out there. And that's really what's important to us. But you can find it all at trekgeeks.com if you feel so inclined.
There we go. Perfect. And since you mentioned where people can find you, why don't you tell our audience where they can find us?
Well, Mission Log is a conversation about Star Trek. Who knew? Find the show at missionlog@roddenberry.com and on X and Facebook at missionlogpod. While you're at it, if you wouldn't mind leaving a review and a rating at Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform, it makes a big difference to the podcasts you love and to John Champion. Always remember your comments could be used on Mission Log. The Roddenberry Industrial Complex will not be denied. But right now it's time for one of my favorite parts of Mission Log. I am a longtime listener and a first-time co-host. But right now, dear listeners, it's time for trivia as we bring you John Champion's Trivia with John Champion, sponsored by John Champion. And now I bring you John Champion.
Bill, I can't thank you enough for that beautiful introduction. Well, here we are with trivia for Juggernaut. We have a story credited to Brian Fuller, and with this episode, we are firmly in the middle of Brian's longtime contributions as writer and producer on the series. The most recent episode of his that we discussed was one which he shared a credit with Nick Sagan, Course Oblivion, and likewise for this episode, they share a teleplay credit along with Kenneth Biller. Like a lot of scripts changing hands and getting input from various writers, the names you see in the credits don't always accurately reflect everyone's contribution. In fact, Nick said that he felt very distanced from this screenplay and that he says that he contributed very little. Maybe that was just disappointment after the fact. I don't know.
Or not. Who knows?
Or not. We'd have to ask him. Now, it was directed by Alan Croker, and we're also in the middle of Alan's run as a director on Voyager. We most recently discussed his episode, Bride of Chaotica, and he will turn up again in Season 6. Now, we make extensive use of the Malon ship interior here, but it may not surprise you to learn that those are mostly a redress of Borg interiors that were used earlier in the season, and most of those were acquired after production of Star Trek First Contact. So, first rule of production, never throw anything away. You can reuse it, repaint it, give it a new lighting scheme, and you're good to go. Although, did you notice a lot of green lighting? And I feel like that's the Borg. Yeah, that's the Borg color. So, but it works when you add a lot of smoke. Right?
It works for toxic waste guys.
It does. It absolutely does. Now, let's meet our guest stars. One of our guests, Malon, is actually someone that we've seen quite often. Early in the episode, Alexander Emberg, who we know as Vorik, is seen playing a Malon engineer. Can't recognize him under the makeup, of course. Now, Dremp is a character named in the script, but not on screen. He's played here by Scott Clace, and while Scott's TV guest roles are many, he also shows up in feature films quite a bit. He's in The Onion movie as Kip Kendall. Love that credit.
That's amazing.
I know, right? He was in the Will Smith movie, The Pursuit of Happiness. He was in Deja Vu and more, and he turns up in a lot of genre TV roles. Angel, Charmed, Sliders, and more. He will be back for one more Trek appearance on Enterprise. Lee Ehrenberg plays Pelk, and he seems to be in the running for playing the most monosyllabically named aliens on Trek. Bear with me, Grawl, Prak, Bok, Pelk, and another Grawl yet to come. These are all under Lee's belt. We saw him on DS9 and twice on TNG in 3 Ferengi roles, and then we'll catch him again in Enterprise as a Tellarite. Finally, Ron Canada.
Oh,
I mean, come on.
Love that guy.
Ron Canada plays Fezzik, and Ron has been in his career, a professional in radio, TV news, theater, film, and TV just for decades. And it's hard to pin down a medium that Ron hasn't mastered. Since the early 80s, he has easily worked between TV and feature films, and as a voice actor, way too many to mention here, but if you follow genre productions, and listening to this show you probably do, then I would point you to his appearances on Babylon 5, The X-Files, Stargate SG-1, and certainly The Orville, where he played Admiral Tucker. And that's on top of the multiple Star Trek appearances. Yes, we saw Ron before on both TNG and DS9. He appeared in TNG in the Masterpiece Society as Martin Benbeck, and then he donned a ridged forehead to play the Klingon Ch'pak in Rules of Engagement. So far, this Voyager appearance is Ron's last role in the Trek franchise. I'm going to say for now, because I think I'd like to see him come back.
I love it when Ron Canada shows up. There's a handful of Trek guest stars, him, James Sloyan, any one of a number of guest stars that I gravitate toward. And Ron Canada is just that outstanding an actor. I love him.
Prepare yourself for an episode where Neelix is the voice of reason, if you can.
Prologue. A Malon ship cruises through space, dumping toxic waste everywhere, like they do. Pelk, a crew member, is playing with a toy spaceship, much to the annoyance of his commander, Fezzik. Suddenly, the ship shakes, alarms blare, and the Theta storage tanks are leaking their toxic contents. With automated systems failing, Fezzik orders one of the engineers to go in. Act 1. Meanwhile, on Voyager, Tuvok tries to help B'Elanna manage her anger with some Vulcan meditation. Apparently, B'Elanna lost her cool with the Doctor and smashed his holocamera, so Chakotay sent her to Vulcan therapy, which she's resisting. Tuvok gets her talking about her earliest memories of anger, and it's all about some kid calling her Ms. Turtlehead. She's handled that the Klingon way, which means she beat him up. Tuvok calls it a source of strength, but when he pokes the bear by calling her Ms. Turtlehead, B'Elanna is done. On the bridge, Tom pokes Tuvok about how it's going. Tuvok admits it's a challenge, which is Vulcan for, I'm dealing with a lot. Just then, Voyager picks up a distress call and finds multiple Malon escape pods. They beam the only survivors aboard, Fezzik and Pelk. Fezzik explains the ship's systems failed, and they're sitting on enough toxic waste to blow up everything within 3 light years. And all that toxic radiation is playing havoc on Voyager's own systems, preventing a warp out to safety. Act 2. The crew and the Malon discuss their options, and Fezzik suggests hiding in a nebula. But Janeway is not into abandoning and endangering other ships in the sector. They agree on an away mission to vent the radiation on the Malon ship, but there's a catch. Pelk mentions a mythical monster called the Vihar, supposedly lurking in the waste tanks. Fezzik dismisses it as radiation poisoning-induced hallucinations, but Pelk insists that they saw something. During the briefing, Neelix shows off his waste management skills. His vast experience on a Talaxian garbage scow was tailor-made for a job like this. B'Elanna, however, is still cranky and sniping at the Malon. Chakotay pulls her aside and tells her to keep her cool. The away team, Chakotay, B'Elanna, Neelix, and the Malon guys, beam aboard the Malon ship, which is just not in great shape. They're trying to decompress the decks, but they trip an electrical explosion. Oops. To make matters worse, Pelk hears noises and moments later is found with serious injuries. He says he was attacked by the Vihar. Act 3. Back on Voyager, the Doctor finds evidence that Pelk was attacked by some kind of theta radiation-resistant life form. Janeway's already working on a plan B involving dragging the Malon ship into the path of a star to blow it up, but now on the Malon ship, things are getting weird-er. B'Elanna and Fezzik find a Malon core laborer's body in the infirmary, and Fezzik explains that these guys work in the most dangerous part of the ship for crazy high pay, but with the trade-off that they don't live that long. B'Elanna starts showing signs of radiation poisoning herself, but she pushes on, leading the team as they vent the decks. Just as the team makes more progress, the deck they are on decompresses, and Chakotay gets knocked out by flying debris, and they have to beam him back to Voyager's sickbay. As they bicker about what went wrong, something watches them from the shadows. Act 4. Tuvok does not trust his new pupil because he says that he's worried about B'Elanna being in charge now, but Janeway has faith. B'Elanna and the remaining team reach the Malon control room, but as they seal the ruptured tanks, a power surge stops them in their tracks. The surge came from a workstation on the same deck, which is super coincidental with the news that Janeway breaks to them. They detected a life form on the ship, the being that killed Pelk. Power fails, and there's no way to gain control of the Malon vessel, which means Janeway is ready for Plan B, hurling the ship into the nearest star with the tractor beam. That means B'Elanna and Neelix need to get out of the control room so Voyager can get a transporter lock, but the door to the control room slams in their faces. In the enclosed control room, thick gases blow in from the vents, obscuring their vision. In astrometrics, Seven spots the unknown life form approaching the Malon control room. Soon Neelix gets attacked by the Vihar, followed by Fezzik. B'Elanna arms herself with a metal bar and comes face to face with the Vihar. When she vents enough of the gases away, she reveals a Malon core laborer, badly mutated from long radiation exposure. She threatens to kill him, but he replies that he is already dead. Act 5. The Malon core laborer is named Dremk, and he's on a mission to destroy the ship in order to force his people to face the consequences of their many abuses. B'Elanna tries to reason with Dremk, saying she understands his anger, but violence isn't the answer. He's not buying it, so she's left with no choice but to take him down with her metal pipe. Voyager finally beams the team out just as the Malon ship hurtles into the star and explodes. Later in sickbay, the Doctor patches everyone up, but warns Fezzik that his radiation exposure has done irreparable damage. Fezzik is left to figure out how to report all this back home. B'Elanna, meanwhile, reflects on her own struggles with anger while taking a well-deserved sonic shower. The end.
That recap was, as usual, the John Champion top shelf offering. So,
thank you.
Well done, sir. Well done. I've always wanted to be on the receiving end of one of those recaps, and it did not disappoint.
Thank you.
I'm going to leave that trailing in the air because I don't want to spoil anything for later.
That part, yeah.
Yeah, that part.
Okay. Let me ask you first. How do you feel about... I always feel like it's a mixed bag when Voyager goes back to an alien species that we haven't seen in a while. Maybe they got introduced a few episodes ago and go, okay, really, can we explore this story much more? Or then it's like you forget about some, like the Vidians, and they just get name-checked somewhere later. But I wanted to know what happened to them. Did you want to know what happened to the Malon?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I thought that if done well, it could have been a really thought-provoking story. Mm-hmm. We probably could have found a way to make the Malon a little more interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe they run across the Malon homeworld and its sort of caste system of people who deal with garbage and people who don't. That could have been something interesting. But for this, I would say this follows along with most of my criticisms of that particular situation. We introduce the Vidians, we introduce any one of a number of aliens, and they make an okay first outing, and then after that, it's like, it's the Malons.
Right. But here we've just decided, like, if you give all of these aliens a hook, something to hang your hat on, go, that's what we're exploring about those aliens. The Vidians was this weird, like, medical horror story and how far they compromise. Cool. Very cool. And how far they go to compromise their values in order to save themselves. Similar-ish thing could be said about the Malon, but really it's just like, we need to further explore the polluters of space. That's what we're going to do here.
They're uninspiring. And in fact, I'm a little horrified that Malon ship spews exhaust like a 1974 Chevy Malibu Classic.
It does.
With a blown engine.
Yeah.
It's... you remember those commercials of the 70s, with all the cars spewing exhaust into the air, saying, give a hoot, don't pollute and all that.
Yeah.
It's horrifying that happens. But whenever I see that Malon freighter, I want the theme from Sanford and Son to play. These guys are, I would call them the worst, but they're only the worst because they're terrible people.
Yeah, they are. They are.
It's a terrible society. Yeah.
By the way, you name checked Sanford and Son and the theme song. Do you know who wrote that theme song?
I want to say Quincy Jones.
You are right, my friend.
Oh, wow, that's a wing and a prayer.
Called The Street Beater. Here's another bit of trivia for you. Red Fox. Do you know his real name?
No, I don't actually.
Red Fox, real name, not Red Fox, but indeed it is John Elroy Sanford.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm guessing, because, it was adapted from the British TV series Steptoe and Son.
Yes.
So I'm guessing that's why they named it Sanford.
Wow. Like, here, we're going to name it after you. Very cool.
Look for the Sanford and Son podcast coming from Roddenberry in 2030.
Yes, can't wait for that. All right, back on Voyager. I love casual Tuvok. He always gets cool clothes when he's not in uniform. Not everybody does. He's got this like sparkly robe thing that it's his therapy clothes.
It's therapy clothes.
Yeah, when he's supposedly teaching emotional control to B'Elanna, which he's got his work cut out for him. B'Elanna has a very 7 of 9 outfit.
Yeah, she does.
Interesting choice. And I just felt, come on, you wrecked the Doctor's camera. Like the very little pleasure in life that the Doctor gets from anything. And you broke his camera. Come on. You're an officer, B'Elanna.
What's
Stop.
Next? Is the Doctor going to be forced to use an old Kodak disc camera from the 1980s?
He might.
Because that camera was already just gargantuan.
Huge. I love the giant holo camera. Yeah.
You would think that the sensors mounted on Voyager would be the size of billboards, if that's the case.
Yeah.
Especially the long-range sensors.
Oh, yeah.
But this brings up a problem I've had with, the writing of the B'Elanna character.
Yeah.
I feel like B'Elanna is the McCoy of Voyager, to do a mission log callback. back to the first 3 seasons of the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Her rage is Gumbified.
Yeah.
She's only volatile and only uncontrollable when it serves the plot. And even then, not all the time. I mean, let's be honest. Not all Klingons are rageful, just destroying stuff right and left.
Right.
Not all humans do it. That tells me that there's something there with B'Elanna. And if Tuvok thinks he's going to... Why didn't he just mind meld with her?
Thank you. He could just cut right to it. Yeah. Cut out the noise. Get right to it. Like, oh, this thing from childhood is still messing with you. Let's fix that. Let's set up some mental barriers to help you with that. Yeah.
I mean, he did some of that stuff for Kes, and that worked out well.
Too soon.
Too soon. I love Kes. Don't get me wrong. I really feel like his provocation of her is out of character for Tuvok.
Oh, like 100%.
He calls her Miss Turtlehead, and I'm like, dude, that'd be like her calling you Mr. Pointy Ears.
Yeah, right.
That's not cool.
Right. It's out of character. Look, let me go back to B'Elanna for just a second, because B'Elanna's problem, I feel like, is Tom's problem, where you have these, well, they are each other's problem at this point in the series, of course.
They are.
But the writers tend to just ease back into season 1 Tom or season 1 B'Elanna. Oh, he's a ne'er-do-well. He's the criminal. He's trying to figure himself out and be an adult. Oh, she's just angry. She's got a chip on her shoulder. But we've seen all these moments of growth for them, and they haven't figured out how to make that stick. Whereas I feel like with Tuvok, it's the opposite problem. Tuvok is so rich, so interesting, and underused.
Very.
So when you have him for a few seconds, like a scene like this, like why go this route and have him do something totally out of character, like call her Miss Turtlehead? Yeah.
And, this rage, this convenient rage of B'Elanna's, because I feel like we addressed some of this in Extreme Risk.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they've regressed the character simply just to tell this story. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it works for the character, quite honestly.
Yeah. Because I hate to skip ahead to, how we feel about the thing and same. But I feel like you could also have told this story in a more sensitive way about B'Elanna having dealt with this stuff, not just I'm angry.
Yeah.
Oh, look at the parallel. Like, no. You could have had a much more nuanced way to deal with it. Yeah.
If we're going to be about human exploration, then let's explore humans.
Yeah.
But we can talk about more about that later, because I think this is going to come up again.
I think it will too. I like the oddly clunky, it's not really steampunk, although there's a lot of steam on there, but the big clunky Malon suits. It's kind of like, the 20,000 Leagues dive suits. It's like big, heavy, giant boots, fun stuff there.
It's the appearance of the Malons reminds me of 2 different Scooby-Doo villains, and I know this is a stretch, but I want you.
But I love that you have 2 specific ones. Well,
you called out one of them essentially with those big dive suits from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Oh my God!
So there's the ghost of Captain Cutler, who is wearing one of those suits.
Of course.
And then there's Spooky Space Kook, where if you look at the 2 of them together, it looks like the Malons are their love child.
Wow. Okay.
And that's when I'm looking at the Malons. I'm like, it's a cool idea. It's executed well by makeup, but it's just something about it just makes me go, we would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids.
Right. It's a funny moment for me, one of the Malons saying, like, we have this myth, the Vihar, and Chakotay, finally his ears were, ooh, a myth. Like, if he were to only have one line in the episode, that's the most Chakotay thing for him to respond to. So
I was waiting for him to go, Akuchimoya.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Hands rubbed, Akuchimoya, let's do this. I do, look, we take a lot of shots at Chakotay, well-deserved. I like him calling out B'Elanna's bad behavior, and we should have more of that all along, because I'm sorry, but if we're going to keep regressing B'Elanna, we need to have the person who is in theory closest to her other than Tom, which I still have my questions,
Lots.
And because they have indicated earlier in the season, okay, she's still dealing with stuff, but I also just want to see, I want to see growth that sticks. And I wanted her to be a little more self-reflective and go, oh, wait, I used to do this. I don't anymore. Yeah.
And I think that's my biggest problem with how the character is written so far over the first 5 years of the series.
Yeah.
It's B'Elanna's convenient. Now, granted, as an engineer, extremely superbly competent. She is a great engineer. She's an okay officer.
Yeah.
But she's really not good at reading situations or knowing when to exercise diplomacy. And this is one of the things I think that Chakotay does super well as a character. The primary responsibilities of the first officer are the crew and their mental health, their performance, and executing the captain's vision. He comes down on B'Elanna appropriately and tells her to get on board. And she deserves the lecture that she gets here. Chakotay essentially says, shape up or ship out. Yeah. And I think that it's a key moment in this episode if we're talking about B'Elanna, because Chakotay's like, get it together.
As you're saying that, I keep thinking it's so two-dimensional to just have B'Elanna as angry, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's just something they fall back on. Why doesn't Chakotay or somebody else on board appeal to her sense of Klingon honor? I mean, look at a guy like Worf, who's just constantly trying to be the best Klingon he can be, and has this like almost hyper moralistic view of it. I feel like B'Elanna could take a few lessons and go like, oh, okay, you can be the warrior, but you also need to understand that there is a code here.
How did she make it through Starfleet Academy? Onto, I know, but how does she pass the screening process or the psych test?
Right.
With this issue. Again, I'm not blaming Roxanne. I'm not blaming
of course not.
B'Elanna. Yeah. I think this is just, I think it's the writers taking liberties. They're trying to create good stories. Yeah. But I think this is one where I think they ignore some critical character development from earlier in the season, quite honestly.
Agreed. Now, as you know, in the long-running mission log tradition, I have to point out the food.
Naturally.
I think Neelix is making split-pea soup, but he's very involved in this anti-radiation split-pea soup. It's very...
I wish I had some of that.
Yeah.
Because, I can think of all the radiation I come into contact with in my home. Although I think it probably might need some Leola root to really bring out that flavor.
It all needs Leola root, indeed. Yeah. Now, look, I know that it's a budget thing. I know that you need to see the actors acting, and I know that the characters got inoculated, but no EV suits, like no masks, nothing. They're just, we're just going to beam over and all that gas that's blowing in our face. We'll be fine. We'll be fine.
This is something I've wondered about for a long time with this episode. Couldn't they have teched the tech and made it possible for the doctor to do some of the really dangerous stuff? Maybe they could give him those life support belts from the animated series.
Yes.
Or made his emitter impervious to the radiation.
Exactly.
I really feel like they missed an opportunity.
Yeah,
but
that would have been cool.
Cut out about 25 minutes of going deck to deck.
Yeah, right. Wow, those critical 25 minutes. But here's the thing, in the tradition of, getting rid of somebody's technology, in a modern story, if you want to isolate somebody, take away their cell phone so they can't reach out for help. Here, you get rid of the tricorders. So no, they're not going to be able to rely on at least that bit of tech.
Well, and thank the great bird of the galaxy that they didn't bring any phasers. Oh. Because if the energy from the tricorder was causing that, can you imagine how many, gigajoules of power are coming out of those phasers at any given time?
Yeah. That would be rough.
Yeah, that'd be very rough. That's a bad day.
Yeah. Immediately increasing the Malon body count. A lot of dead Malon in this. Cool set pieces here. I like the industrial junk all around them.
I like the way that looked. There was a little too much dripping goop for me.
Yeah.
I feel like...
What is that coming from?
At one point, Neelix grabs a railing or a ladder, and he looks at his hand like, ooh, what is that? Yeah. And I'm thinking, I hope he doesn't wipe it on his costume, because wardrobe is really going to have a bad day.
They will be upset. Yeah.
I think that goop was probably a massive line item in the budget for this episode.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's everywhere. And does every species of alien have Jeffries tubes that you must crawl through on your hands and knees?
I'm so glad you took that note, because I thought the same thing. Like, you spend an awful lot of time in this crawl space, and I'm just like, you could build it without that. You don't have to.
I never understood this. Maybe it's like a closet. They had those alcoves on the Enterprise D, off to the side with all the blinking things. You
just go in there. Like, we have a tech closet at work. You open the door and there's a server, and
exactly.
There's the switches. Yeah.
I get it. I mean, they're reusing some sets. They're trying to make things a little different. They got to release the manual control. Right. Which kind of looks like a potato masher or something like that. But it's just, there's always caves. There's always nebulas. There's always Jeffrey tubes.
Yep. Always, no matter what. Yep. Yeah, they all get them from the Jeffries tubes. It's Just Tubes is the supply house they get them from.
Just Tubes and more.
Just Tubes and more. Yeah, every ship that is built anywhere in the galaxy.
That's right.
Go there. Yeah,
it's right next to Norm's Discount Swords.
It is in Reseda. Yeah,
in Reseda.
Exactly. Yeah. Weird moment with B'Elanna meditating. I don't know if I really buy it.
I don't understand this decision in the script. Yeah. I know we're calling back to Act 1. I get it. The scene with Tuvok and all that. But I really have difficulty believing that right then, B'Elanna's going to choose to get all zen and meditate on the floor in the middle of a radioactive garbage scow. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm just waiting for this radiation to kill me. Why don't I sit down and try to calm myself? I don't see that happening.
That doesn't feel like, and just finding the space and doing the whole kneeling, and I didn't quite get it. We have a very we don't know for sure. I imagine Brannon Braga had his hands on the script at some point, because you do have this horror element, and we have this kind of very classic horror reveal. The smoke clears, and here's the mutated monster coming out of the shadows. I thought that was pretty effective. How about you?
I thought it was really good, but I think that there was almost too much fog. Now I get it; it added realism to the shooting, but I think this is a great example of standard definition really harming the vision of that scene. I think that this scene would probably look even better if it were in high definition, and if CBS or Paramount ever decided to upscale this, because I think that fog takes away from not only some of the action, but some of B'Elanna's reaction. I think you lose some of that.
I kind of noticed that as well. I thought the reveal took too long. Yeah. So what you sort of need that smoke to clear. You need to build the drama, and then boom, hit the reveal and go away. The whole sequence, it's cool. It is effective.
Mm-hmm. It is.
It needed just another round in the edit to make it really snap. Yeah.
It really did. I mean, this is probably the most enjoyable part of the script, I think.
Yeah,
totally. As I'm watching this episode multiple times, because there's a lot of tension there. B'Elanna's facing some stuff to take this guy out. And she's calling up all that rage from the kid who called her Miss Turtlehead to essentially save their lives, which is really kind of a deep well to go down.
It's a very quick turn, and it's very classically B'Elanna, please let me help you, and then bash him so hard with a metal pipe.
I have to believe that's how she and Tom Paris got together.
We can only hope. Other notes here, the Malon freighter blowed up real good.
Real good.
Real good.
That effect with the Voyager speeding away from the star as the Malon freighter blows up, fantastic VFX work.
Yeah, really nice stuff. Yeah. Which again, it holds up well given the time. And then you try to imagine but what would that look like now? Even more impressive, I think I'll come back to this when we get to our summary of the episode. I wondered if there's a way to write this where the Vihar, Dremk, lives. And I don't know that I have totally settled on how I feel about his fate and B'Elanna's last decision there to take him out. But let's park that and come back to it.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, because I have to wonder what the discussion was like in the writer's room to figure out how we fix this, I do love how in classic TV format, the doctor, well, he can take care of the main cast. Like, Milana's got radiation burn. She's got, I can take care of you, but if you're a guest star, no, I guess you're just stuck like this forever and ever.
I guess you're pretty screwed then.
Yeah, too much. I'm glad we finally got to see the sonic shower at work. Now, the morphing effect is a bit dated.
A little.
And you can tell that's how they did it. But to see it actually work, again, made me think, I want to see this now. I want to see what you could do with that now.
I liked the scene, even if the more critical observer of this episode in my brain says, this is the last 30 seconds of the episode. I didn't need this.
Yeah.
Because it adds nothing to the plot other than to say B'Elanna's day is over and she's finally taking a shower.
Yeah. And we're probably running short on the edit.
With 15 minutes spent going from deck to deck.
Yes.
Hard to believe they couldn't grab some of that off the cutting room floor.
Just keep it going.
But, if I think about, where I would want Star Trek to be present day, is that scene's not really gratuitous because, it's not played for the appeal.
Yeah.
But it's certainly unnecessary to the movement of the script or tying up the episode.
Absolutely.
So let me see if I understand this. Despite all her rage, B'Elanna is still just a targ in a cage?
Hey everybody, we've got something really special for all the parents, kids, and Star Trek fans out there. It's called Grado the Uh-Oh by J.D. Atlas. And trust me, this is a book that you're going to love. In the spirit of Gene Roddenberry's ideals, Grado the Uh-Oh is more than just a fun read. It is a mission to create a better world, just like our favorite Starfleet officers would.
Grado the Uh-Oh brings the psychedelic art of Star Trek the original series, the enlightened diplomacy of the next generation, and the female empowerment of Voyager into a delightful and colorful adventure. It's perfect for kids, and let's be honest, for adults too. It's all about teaching that you don't need superpowers to solve big problems. Everyone has the power to make a difference, and this book makes that lesson fun with its funny rhymes, surreal comic book art, and a mix of sci-fi, superheroes, fairy tales, and even a little rock and roll.
Grado the Uh-Oh is a book loved by kids and adults. Fun equals 1,000,000 volts. And let me tell you, that's exactly how it feels when you're reading it. Now, we both got to read it, and I happen to really appreciate the wild rhymes and the wacky adventures of Millie and Grado. It's a bright, high-energy story that is a joy from beginning to end.
Plus, there is a really important message about standing up to bullies in a positive way. Millie makes a wish to the stars, and that's how Grado the Uh-Oh shows up with his superpowers and a bit of property damage. But here's the twist. Grado isn't perfect. Sometimes he stumbles. It's Millie who has to take charge, showing that you don't need to be a superhero to lead the way. It's a heartwarming story for the little ones, and let's face it, for the kid in all of us.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, it's great for adults, great for kids. And if you're reading to kids, I think that they will love this. And here's the deal. You can find Grado the Uh-Oh at gradotheUhO.com/missionlog. That's Grado, GREATOVTHEUHOH.com/missionlog. And hey, if you pick it up, make sure to leave a review on Amazon or wherever you buy books. Your reviews are super important.
That's right. Join Millie and Grado on their wild adventure and help spread the message that we can all create a better world. Remember, it's Grado the Uh-Oh by J.D. Atlas at gradotheUhO.com/missionlog. Go check it out and share the fun, because fun equals 1,000,000 volts.
Yes, it does. And don't forget, reviews, again, they're a huge help. So leave one on Amazon or wherever you grab your copy and let the world know that you attended the school for gifted little ones and twos. That's just a little book reference. You'll get it when you read it.
That's it for us. Check out Grado the Uh-Oh and get ready for super-powered fun.
So in the last segment, we already said that there are some things we wanted to come back to, but I got some ideas I want to kick around here. We always say on Mission Log, and I think anybody who analyzes Star Trek with any sort of seriousness, they go, okay, yeah, the aliens are us as much, if not more so, than Starfleet is us. Like Starfleet represents our ideals. When we are at our best, we're like Starfleet. But by the way, these aliens are pretty much you now. Ferengi, whatever, and the Malon. And there's something just, I don't know, you look at the Malon and you go, okay, they have incredible technology. They have starships. They can go out into space. And they, like us, will abuse that and make the worst possible decisions. Like, we can go into space, we can explore anywhere we want, but we will still pollute and destroy other worlds, either through intent or laziness or incompetence. Those are the three things that drive how they operate. And I thought it was so just like telling, but so tragic, that scene where Fessick is in the crawl through the Jeffries tubes, right? Yep. Talking to B'Elanna about their world and how beautiful it is and how they work so hard to keep that clean and presentable in this paradise, that there are others of their species who volunteer for these incredibly dangerous jobs to go out and carry their waste away. And look, I didn't want to derail the whole episode, but I thought, but wait, there's the thing to talk about. Obviously you and I can have a discussion about that. We can explore that and look at the real world parallels to that. But I just thought, oh, wait a minute, Voyager, hang on. Let's talk about that a little bit longer, because again, that's us. That's what we do. Human beings will work so hard to clean up a beautiful place. Like, okay, right now, the Olympics for 2028 are being built in the town that I live in Los Angeles, right? That is exciting. That's cool. There's going to be these new buildings and new public transportation, but at what cost? Okay, right. Construction debris, waste, jobs that are temporary, and then these buildings, if it's anything like every other Olympic city that gets built, a couple of them might stick around and might get a second life, but most of them are going to just rot away. And we go, but we did this one cool thing once, and now we just let it fall apart because out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
I picture the Malon home planet like this.
Yeah, now that you frame it that way, I can understand why you see that. I sit here wondering, what are they doing that is creating something so toxic and so, so much an anathema to life on their planet that they have to bring it up into space somehow.
Yeah,
and then pay members of their society a king's ransom to take this stuff and dump it somewhere. Yeah. I mean, it makes you wonder who winds up on that career path. It makes you wonder why if they can build spaceships and travel at warp, can't they come up with a more efficient or cleaner method of doing whatever it is that causes this byproduct? It's almost like they don't learn from the fact that this very toxic substance, which kind of drives the lives of these people, is something that could eventually destroy them all.
But that's us.
I know it is us. It's absolutely us.
I mean, so think about it. We have, and I can't remember the exact numbers around it. I can't remember what generation we're on now as far as like nuclear power reactors. I think we're on like Gen 4 or something like that. And the problem is, Gen 1 reactors, some of them still in operation. They work. They produce more waste. Waste is a bad thing, clearly. Okay, but had we kept investing, had we kept developing that technology, by the time you get to a Gen 4 or a Gen 5 reactor, the amount of waste is minuscule. Not to say that it's not dangerous, not to say that we don't need to figure out better ways to store and protect that to get it away from doing additional harm. But we kind of just say like, oh, well, it's dangerous. It's always going to be dangerous. We shouldn't really put more money or effort into making them better. We'll just sort of keep creating these up in, concrete sarcophagi and dumping them into the sea. Whereas I look at these guys and I go, well, wait a minute. If we had that kind of space flight like they do, load that stuff up, throw it into a sun, you're good. But to your point, like, how much more are they doing? Like, what else are they actually benefiting from before somebody raises their hand and says, let's stop doing this now, please?
Well, and the obvious, bonk bonk on the head comparison here is nuclear power.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's something that, if we had continued to develop, it would be different. But there are much cleaner ways to get power.
Sure.
Why have these people figured out space flight and not solar?
Yeah. Yeah.
I get it. We can't tell a story without some kind of problem. We can't, have some kind of, mirror for humanity unless we create something like this.
Right.
But I think this would have made the episode more interesting. We spent 15 minutes going through the decks of that ship when we could have gone to the Malon homeworld and said, you're killing these people. Is it worth it? And then help them discover a better way, or be like, Kirk, and just foisted a better way on them without them wanting it.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what you do.
Or Data shooting the aqueduct in the Ensigns of Command.
There you go. Yeah.
Could we move them to a place where they're not putting these members of their society in grave danger?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, so let me ask you this, because that comes down to Drempks. Yes. The Vihar
rolls off the tongue.
It just rolls off the tongue. Yeah. His journey, his decision. All right. He's got nothing to lose. He is radiated beyond all recognition. He has lost his soul. He's not human, but he's lost his humanity. And he's ready to take them all down with him. I feel, as we're meant to, immense sympathy for his situation and a bit of understanding. It's like, okay, if you wouldn't listen to me when I was raising my hand saying this is wrong, you're abusing the people who are doing this, they're dying, it isn't worth it, what do you have left? And I guess what you have left is a revolutionary act by sabotaging the whole system and saying, do you notice now?
I think you meant to say sabotage.
You say sabotage. I say sabotage.
Sabotage.
Sabotage. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think we're really meant to mull over the moral decisions that he makes too much. I think it's understandable what he does, and it's understandable that he got to this place where there is no other choice for him. Or is there? Because in walks B'Elanna, and she's like, time's running out. You won't listen to me. I'm going to take you out.
Yeah. And it's almost as if he's hoping she does it so he doesn't have to do it himself. In a way.
There we go. Yeah.
Maybe he's attacking all these people to put him out of his misery. Because like you said, it's not like he can go home.
Yeah.
It's not like he will have any quality of life. We can only guess at what his motivation is there, other than I'm going to teach them a lesson. So could it have happened differently? I don't know, but that it's still wrong.
It's another really dark idea about the Malon homeworld is, what do they do with these outcasts?
Yeah.
Who show up after however many tours of duty, exposed to all this radiation. No. Our world is perfect. Thank you for your service. But you're not allowed in the park, Yeah,
we're going to settle you in this colony.
Yeah.
I really think I wish they had explored that aspect of the episode.
Yeah.
What happens when these people come home? Because I think they could have drawn some very interesting, comparisons to, people coming home from war, or people coming home from, helping others in major disasters, or people whose lives are inexorably changed by the horrors of insert thing here.
Right.
I feel like there was an interesting story to tell here, and I feel like they missed that opportunity.
Yeah, they came close and just like
very close.
I don't know. Yeah, we're not going to do that part though. All right, let's talk about one other I'm having trouble with the B'Elanna-Tom relationship, and as you so well pointed out in the last segment, like the lack of growth, the reversion of B'Elanna back to season 1 B'Elanna.
Yeah.
She's being awfully difficult about most things right now. And she's got this season 1 chip on her shoulder. And Tom, too. Like, they make him act like this, regressed teenager every now and then. I'm just going to go play in the holodeck with my 69 Camaro. Is this why they're attracted to each other? Because I'm not... I don't think I get it. I don't think... They have told us that they're a couple. They haven't really shown us that they are a couple in a way that I get it. And I feel like Star Trek has this problem with couples where they just revert to writing conflict of couples. See also Miles and Keiko, where it's not just like, hey, these are how couples get along in this interesting context. It's like, no, if we're going to spend any amount of time with them, it's got to be this bickering conflict, and then we move on with the rest of the story.
I think you're spot on there. I mean, not only Miles and Keiko, but really almost any couple ever in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Save Jadzia and Worf.
Oh,
because they do their own fair share of bickering.
Yeah.
But you always know where Worf stands with Jadzia and where Jadzia stands with Worf, and ultimately what drew them together. You can draw that line. That through line is obvious to anyone watching it. When you come to Tom and B'Elanna, Tom loves a challenge. I get that. Tom is that guy.
Yeah.
He wants to restore the Chevy. He wants to beam the truck up from space. He wants to, build himself a shuttle. All right, great. I don't get it with B'Elanna. I don't see why she would see something in Tom, because Tom is everything he's human, so she admires that half of herself, but yet she tries to keep it so distant as to feel anything.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't make sense to me. She doesn't want to be Klingon. She doesn't want to be human, so it makes me wonder, what does somebody who kind of self-loathes both half of themselves find in a partner? And I don't know if that ever really gets answered for us up to this point.
And look, there may not be a bow to put on it or to put on her experience. I get that, and I get that things don't always end happily ever after. That's fine.
Right.
I hate to see, like, okay, we're going down this path where we're going to explore her, we're going to elevate her a little bit and really get into her psychology, and then I feel like by the end of it, no, we're just going to go back to what's comfortable writing for her.
Yeah.
And that left me wondering, does she actually learn anything in this episode? Because I made light of it before, that when she's confronted with the Dremp and the time is running out, she just has to revert to a violent decision, which is difficult. I think there is pain in that decision, but does she learn anything other than just, well, I get to go home and take a sonic shower and try to forget the day? Because maybe that's where we're just supposed to end up again, but I want to think that there is the ability for her to get through the things that started her day this badly, which is, she broke the doctor's camera. Like, come on. Be
How is he going to take pictures?
Yeah, right.
Right. How is he going to do a day in the life of the Warp Core? I don't know. I'm going to touch on I don't want to spoil the ending, but I'm going to touch on some of this a little later, because I think that there's an element of this that nobody asks her. There's an element of this that they don't dive in on, and I think it's a missed character building. I think it's a failure of the writing staff to explore this thing and say why.
Yeah,
it's not enough to say, hey, stop being rageful. It's something else to go, why are you rageful? And it's more than about some kid who called her Miss Turtlehead.
Hopefully this episode has a better message than speak loudly and carry a big stick.
All right, as we do on Mission Log, when we get to the end, we ask each other if the episode holds up and if we learned anything in the way of a moral meaning or message. So, Juggernaut, Bill, what is the Juggernaut? Is the Juggernaut the giant ugly ship that is spewing gases? Is the Juggernaut the scary monster that has to be beaten with a pipe? Is it the Juggernaut that's in ourselves? The anger and fear.
I think it's all of the above.
Okay.
I struggled with this.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I know that, that somebody out there is keeping track of whether it holds up or not, and there's usually a ranking at the end of the series.
Oh, yeah.
I thought about it for a long time, and ultimately I have to say no, not for me. I like that this episode stands alone. I mean, but it moves almost as slowly as that Malon freighter does. There really legitimately is 10 to 12 minutes of actual story here.
Yeah.
And we round out the remainder of the 40 minutes with just stuff that is inconsequential, stuff that is character regressive, stuff that makes no sense. Is it watchable? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Is it great Star Trek? I have a hard time saying yes. So I kind of have to say no. It's not the worst episode of the series so far.
Sure.
But, it's certainly
that's
not...
the fight. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's the fight. But I don't know that I'm going to rush out to watch this one again unless I'm recording a podcast with a friend.
There we go. Yeah, I think I kept going back and forth, where the first time I watched it, I thought, okay, this is terrible. And then the second time I watched it, I thought, well, wait a minute. Let me pay attention to some of the details that we're learning here about the Malon, And then by the third time, I'm feeling like, okay, the production is slipping here, and all the good ideas that are present are being undermined by the pacing and by character moments that don't feel true. All of that stuff is working against it. So there are many cores of many good ideas here. This kind of like Phantom of the Opera story or Phantom of the Dumpster, this guy who's, wandering around the ship and he's the scary monster. But then Voyager does this kind of Star Trek thing where, okay, well, he's not really a monster. He is a being with motivation that we need to understand. That's cool. That's great. I'll come right back to that in the morals meeting messages. And I like when Voyager can successfully bring back an alien and explore their culture and explore what makes them tick. We mentioned the failure of bringing back the Vidians, which could have been really cool. And I feel like with the Malon, okay, they just were like these kind of gruff, dirty, the garbage haulers of the galaxy, and we only got the same taste of them each time we saw them before. And this time around, these moments really stuck with me, like Ron Canada. We talk about how great he is. And when you put a guy like Ron Canada in this role, instead of an actor who just plays the surface, like, I'm a gruff garbage truck driver, you go, well, wait a minute, there's a sensitivity here. And there's a character and depth here that we can actually explore. I go back to that scene with him describing their homeworld, and I thought, oh man, if we could have cut 10 minutes out of going deck to deck and actually explored that and what that means, and boy, the inherent tragedy of the Malon caste system and how they're lying to themselves about what they're doing, that would have been incredible. But we didn't do that, no. Which is really unfortunate. I give them props for, I think it's very obvious from the beginning we're teasing it as this monster story. But then it's not really the monster. The monster is to be pitied and sympathized with and understood. So at least we're doing a Star Trek thing with that. But I don't want to go back and rewatch this one.
No.
Not anytime soon,
I would rather call up a Frankenstein movie, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Because there's that parallel with him. He's not to be feared. He's to be understood.
Yeah.
He's the product of this society that has put him in this position.
Yeah.
And a bunch of, villagers with torches and pitchforks are coming for him.
Right. And in season 5 of Voyager, there have been so many strong episodes and more to come that I feel like, okay, between this and the fight, if these are the low points of the episode and I can excise these two out of my next rewatch, so be it. Fine. Yeah. There are so many high points with the season. that I'm okay letting this one go and saying that it doesn't really hold up. But even if it doesn't hold up, are there morals, meanings, messages here? Well, for me, I think there are bonk on the head environmental messages. You said it, the parallel is nuclear power. You could apply it to many other things that we do as humans to undermine our own abilities and screw ourselves out of a better future. This is what we do. But I kept trying to figure out, well, who actually learned something in this episode? Did B'Elanna actually learn anything here? She's trying to help this poor guy, and then she has to kill him. And what about the one surviving Malon, our beloved Fessick, Ron Canada? Maybe, but I'm not confident that he will have any headway when he goes back to the Malon homeworld and says, hey, guess what? I've just been through this experience, and it's terrible, and by the way, we shouldn't fear the Vihar. This is what's happening on our ships. And like, yeah, good story. See ya. Guess who's a core laborer now?
Yeah.
So I think that B'Elanna is relieved, but I'm not convinced that B'Elanna has suddenly had a breakthrough in her childhood trauma that she will be a different person the next day. This was just a thing that happened. So I'm not really convinced there either. But, look, like I said before, the Malon are us, as in the monster is us. He is the sum total of the years of abuse and exploitation and disrespect that has come his way. And when his voice isn't heard, he turns to the only thing that he has, and that is violence and destruction. And we should be horrified at that. We should always be shocked by that. But sometimes it's hard to be surprised by that, because when you force people long enough into it, what else is the outcome? Well,
right.
Yeah, they should see it coming the way that we should see it coming as well. What about you, Bill? Pick up anything here that I didn't?
I think the only thing I pick up is what they didn't talk about. And I think this is the part that really disappoints me about, the treatment of this episode. We talked about the sonic shower scene. We talked about how she, was recalling having to kill the Malon. And that means she's still carrying the weight of that action. And I think there's something to be said about B'Elanna's rage in this episode. I get it. Her Klingon half makes her rageful and aggressive, and she's got to break all the things. But I think there's a lot more to it. I mean, it should be clear to Tuvok, who is studied at this, that there's something that B'Elanna's deflection is part of, something bigger, right? This shouldn't be about, B'Elanna, you're angry. That's not good. It should be what is making B'Elanna angry.
Right.
It's not just the turtle head. The way her rage comes back really makes it seem like she struggles with some post-traumatic stress from her childhood. Now, this is not something I talk about a lot, but I'm starting to. I figure at this age I probably should. But as someone who myself is an adult survivor of child abuse, I see huge issues with B'Elanna's rage. And I mean, I hope we would have better mental health in the future than people just going, stop acting out, B'Elanna. That's not good. But Star Trek has never really dealt with mental health well. We didn't do it in TOS or in TNG, in Deep Space Nine, and certainly not now. I think what really would have served B'Elanna well is if Tom, who cares about her, parenthetically for some reason, Chakotay, who is her bestie, if you will, and Tuvok really wanted to help her and her rage, they would have approached that much more differently. It's not about get it together. It's like, look, you really need to talk to somebody. We really need to help you with this because we care about you. We see what's happening. It's destructive. You are hurting not only other people, you are hurting yourself. But this episode doesn't do that. She just piles on more triggers. Now in the shower, she's seeing that visual of killing the Malon, and that's just adding on. It just keeps getting higher. And that's really my problem with this episode. As somebody who has had to deal with his own, post-traumatic like stress, I get the acting out, but it is never addressed. Yeah. And that's the thing I take issue with.
Bill, I really appreciate you being here today, and I really appreciate you sharing that with our audience and connecting to the episode. Thank you. Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog for early access to shows and the Mission Log Discord. Our website is missionlogpodcast.com, and for more Star Trek news and discussion, visit trekmovie.com.
On the next Mission Log, there's an episode I'm longing to see. I hope that it turns out to be someone to watch over me.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com. Special thanks to consulting producers, Matt Esposito, Homer Frizzell, Rand Hurl, Tom Kozak, Julie Miller, Mike Richards, Mike Shadwell, Paul Shadwell, and David Takechi. I still want to know if Neelix was helped by his home radiation remedy. End transmission.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.